All right, welcome back. Waiting on a few parts and pieces to come in the mail, so I figure I might want to get the whole tape and some of the ideas that I'm having about where to actually cut the frame. So I'm actually going to have a whole nother seat bracket sent to me, so that way I have factory pieces instead of trying to make pieces. They should fit regardless, even if I have to trim them a little bit because of the way the frame actually changes shape a little bit. So we'll go through these here. We'll get this flipped around. Okay, small updates. Waiting on some wiring to come in. There are roughly 33 of them. 3 of them are in 12 gauge for the charging, and the rest of them are either, fused or ignition, so on and so forth. The other parts I'm waiting on is another rack and pinion. I'll get to that in another spot. And as you can see, this is the pretty Bounty Series 4-seat drive shaft. I figured instead of going like Super ATV done and having a custom made one, which is great if you own $1 million shop or so, you can just call into the back and say, hey, I need one of these in this length. But if you break it out on the trail, you have to have another custom one. In this case, this is a 4-seat. So this comes straight off the shelf. I did cram it in there. It's not fully bolted in yet. It's missing the bolts, but that kind of gives me an idea that going from here, straight up through and out the front. Now, obviously I've got to plug it in here, but we got to cut it in half first. So the diff is unbolted, but that's roughly where it sits. Taking a measurement, so the front of the diff lines up with the head of the lower A-arm bolt, and going from the lower A-arm bolt all the way out to the front actually is about 38 inches. So roughly 38 inches is how far forward the diff is going to move, and that should put the front of the car way out front, which that's basically what I'm going for. Now to go through some of the blue tape and the spots for cutting and the reasoning why. We'll get the easy ones out of the way. The lower frame, you're going to cut here, obviously, because this is the mount for your rear trailing arm. You don't want to be cutting through it. And then there's also a brace that goes from the front center across and links up to the bottom here. So in order to keep from having to remake a brace and a trailing arm, we'll go right in the middle of it on both sides the same way. Then you move up 1 bar. This is 1 3/4. I believe this is 1.5 inches up here, but either way, I decided I'm gonna come back here for this one. Not only do you keep from having 2 cuts in the same plane to help offset your cuts and your welds, to help with your rigidity of putting it back together, there's another reason for cutting right here. You can still get a flat spot, but what I'm gonna end up doing is, because this bracket is what holds your seat, clips in, holds your seat and your shifter. Obviously the passenger won't need a shifter, but this entire factory piece goes in here and it's basically made for the frame. So instead of trying to remake one of these with all these tabs, plus this is where your seatbelt bolts, I ordered a whole nother one from eBay, and I'm gonna basically take it off here because this tab that holds this frame in is easy to remake. But I'm gonna leave it there and I'm gonna cut on this side of it, so that way it actually stays there and slides forward with the rest of the frame, giving me a point of reference for the new seat brace, or this seat brace, whichever one I use, but it still gives you a reference point. Now, with that being said, I'll just have to simply make a couple more brackets, because once this slides up here, I'll just have to make a flat bracket probably that welds to the bottom side of the frame, and then the bolt will go down through it, no big deal. Same thing on the other side. It's got another kind of a cattywampus corner. The bolt goes down through the top, so moving it forward, I'm gonna probably have a down pipe somewhere in here, and then I'll be able to just put a bracket that comes out for that to be on. And the same thing with this one. This one's easy to remake, so since we're already gonna cut it here and leave this cross member and your trailing arm bracket in, you cut it here, and that leaves that one back there. It's easy to remake. You make another one and just put it up here somewhere when you get the new pipe in. Now coming up one, again, I'm going back here just for the simplicity of being able to get this cut off and it's staggered from over here. Then you don't have them both directly above one another. Now, the bottom one is kind of easy. These are the two straight points. You could take it off on this side of the bearing bracket, but what that does is that leaves this bend to contend with. So even if you cut it real short right here, it's not really noticeable, but if you were to cut it real short right here, you'd be welding around this bracket and you wouldn't have much if you wanted to sleeve it, which is probably what I'm gonna do. So I'll cut it here. The entire bracket will move forward, but I'll cut it out of the frame and then just re-weld it in further back. And then the other one that I've got tape on, it's a bracket, but what this one is actually this bracket is for the gas tank strap. The strap connects into here, comes up and over, which is just underneath the seat, drops in and bolts down. I'm gonna take that bracket off. Well, I may not now that I think about it, because here is the other idea that I had, is that because this is gonna be a 4-seat length and I'm adding that much space, I could, in a sense, leave the factory tank underneath the passenger, just where it was. It already will bolt in the way it should. Here's a bracket. The other one goes here, and then of course you have the strap. But if that one moves forward, that'll give me another point of reference to be able to run 2 tanks. So I should be able to, with this factory bracket that's up here, be able to run a whole nother factory tank underneath of it, join the 2 of them, and then have that much more capacity. Do I need that much capacity? Probably not, but you know what? I'd rather have it and not need it. So now that I think about it, actually doing this video in real time, I'll probably leave that bracket for a point of reference, and then I can remake that bracket back further when I need to add one for this secondary tank. So that pretty much brings up actually cutting it in 2. So waiting on some parts and pieces. I've got all my waterproof butt splices. I'm waiting on the wire to come in. All of those are gonna have to be extended first. And then once that comes out, then I will be able to actually cut it in half. So pretty soon we'll be in 2 pieces.